So we have covered the chapter on conscientiousness. So many of our mistakes are committed because of being not heedful, conscientious. For example, with regard to physical health, you become reckless and eat all kinds of food and indulge in all kinds of behaviors. And then, for example, in the case of driving, when you're reckless and not be attentive, careful, then there is accident. And so physical sicknesses, diseases, problems happen because of carelessness. And therefore, in order to have good health, you should be careful. For example, you have to heed the advice of your doctors not to take bad food or smoke. And on a daily basis, you should be mindful of all these instructions and be heedful. And so, with this kind of conscientiousness, then you would be aware, oh, this is something that I have to avoid. I should not do this, should not eat or drink this. And while being mindful and not forget the things, you should also check, use introspection to know whether something is good for you to take or not. And therefore you use mindfulness and introspection, and you avoid being tainted by the mistakes, wrongdoings. And not only do we have physical experiences, pain and pleasure, but also there is mental pain and pleasure as well. And so in order not to have mental suffering and pain, which comes from our conceptions. For example, if you have a physical sickness, you may think that you have a very small sickness, and in order for it not to aggravate, you will you'll be careful how you behave and what you eat and so forth. And so bad and good and bad, something considered to be correct or not are all relative. And similarly, many of the physical problems ensue from our mental state. So, depending on your outlook on things, you can reduce the suffering of physical pain with your thought and thinking. And also, anxiety, fear, jealousy, and anger come from the mind. So they destroy your peace of mind, and peace of mind which you actually desire. And therefore, just as you show conscientiousness for physical health, likewise you should do so with this mental happiness. And therefore, on a daily basis, you should be alert and careful not to be overcome with all these emotions which destroy your peace of mind. And therefore, all these negative emotions, such as jealousy, competitive feeling, and so forth, give rise to being aware that they give rise to problems. You should not be overcome by them. And when attachment, hatred, anger, jealousy, arrogance, covetousness, and malice actually arise in you, you should remind yourself that they actually disturb your peace of mind. And therefore show consciousness, show introspection. In order for that to happen, you should show conscientiousness. And therefore, for physical health as well as mental health, you should need conscientiousness and introspection. So they help to refrain from wrongdoings. And therefore, with regard to the practice of morality, what you are doing is you are restraining yourself and avoid committing actions which harm others. So morality is about restraining yourself, self-discipline. So you keep self-discipline, practice self-discipline, which cannot happen by force. Somebody imposing on you what you can do and cannot do. So self-discipline means because you don't want suffering but happiness, therefore you have to cultivate the causes for happiness and overcome the causes of suffering. And therefore, ethical conduct or ethical morality is for your own happiness and goodness. And therefore, on a daily basis, we should not be careless and distracted everywhere, but show conscientiousness, and which helps to develop mindfulness, and which in turn, when you have it, you have introspection as well. You will have. So, chapter 5, those who wish to guard their practice should very attentively guard their minds. For those who do not guard their minds will be unable to guard their practice. So, to protect your mind, mainly with introspection, you check whether your mind is going towards or turning towards bad things or not, and therefore to restrain it. In this world, unsubdued and crazed elephants are incapable of causing such harms as the miseries of the deepest hell, which can be caused by the unleashed elephant of mind. However, if the elephant of mind is firmly bound on all sides by the rope of mindfulness, all fears will cease to exist, and all virtues will come into my hand. Tigers, lions, elephants, bears, snakes, and all forms of enemies, the guardians of hell wolves, evil spirits, and cannibals, will all be bound by binding my mind alone, and will all be subdued by subduing my mind alone. The perfect teacher himself has shown that in this way all fears as well as all boundless miseries originate from the mind. As I explained before, many of our problems in the world come from our mind. So, to avoid suffering, best method is to protect your mind. Who intentionally created all the weapons for those in hell, who created the burning into iron ground, from where did all women in hell ensue? The Mighty One has said, well, all things are the workings of a negative mind. Hence, within the three world spheres, there is nothing to fear other than my mind. If the perfection of generosity were the alleviation of world's poverty, then since beings are still starving, now in what manner did the previous Buddhas perfect it? The perfection of generosity is said to be the thought to give all beings everything, together with the fruit of such a thought, and hence it is simply a state of mind. How nowhere has the killing of fish and other creatures been eradicated for the attainment of merely the thought for the sake of things, is explained as the perfection of moral discipline, unruly beings, and so forth. So with regard to virtuous practices such as the perfection of generosity, morality, so it's not the case that perfection of generosity doesn't mean that all the poverty has been overcome, that there is no more any poor person. But in a sense here, the perfection of generosity is said to be the thought to give all beings everything. So for the sake of for the sake of sentient beings alone, you think of giving everything, and feel when you have no sense of loss when you give, and you're able to give everything to sentient beings. That is the perfection of generosity, and you can give things within the understanding that the giver, the gift, and the person who is given, and the action of giving everything is being merely designated, and therefore you see everything having no independent existence, but merely conventionally existent, and therefore you see everything as being like illusion. And within that state of mind or understanding, you practice generosity and so forth. And so, as Madhyamaka Avatara by Chandrakirti says, all suffering and pain and pleasure are rooted or come from or created by the mind. So the different life forms and also the practice, experience of pain and pleasure come from karma. And karma is not something that comes from outside or without any causes, but karma is an action which is created with some motivation, and the fruit of that is the effect of karma, and therefore we talk about the karmic causality on the basis of motivation. And so things do not come from things which are not causes, and they do not come from incompatible causes and conditions, and they don't come from permanent causes, unchanging causes. And therefore, action can be, we can talk about bad and good actions on the basis of, in relation to the motivation. We talk about violence and non-violence, or harming and not harming others, which are very difficult to judge from external physical expressions or verbal expressions. But something may appear to be violent physically or verbally, but then if the motivation is good, then that action is essentially good. But people may give you gifts and talk nicely, but with a motivation to deceive you. So in that case, if such is done with that kind of motivation, although physically or verbally the person may be showing very nice expressions, but then these actions of giving gift and talking nicely are essentially negative. And so you have to differentiate violence and non-violence, or harming and non-harmful actions on the basis of the motivations. So our pain and pleasure, happiness that we want, come from the mind, and therefore moral or immoral, morality and immorality are based on the mind, your motivation. So if you have a bad motivation and try to show physically doing if you are doing something good, that is actually immoral. And if you practice morality, then everybody else benefits. And then that comes also from love, compassion. And then when we talk about restraining ourselves, with regards to the Vinaya, Pratimoksha vows, what is mainly emphasized is the restraint of one's body and speech. And through that practice of morality, of restraining your body and speech, then you also develop the power of concentration. And by using mindfulness introspection, you develop single-pointed concentration. And then, with the help of that concentration, you do analysis of the reality of things, how things actually are, and develop wisdom, and which in turn sees the reality of things and serves as a weapon against self-grasping. Verse 21. So this is mainly referring to the, with reference to the monks. And it shows that even in the midst of women, the steady effort of control myself, to control myself will not decline. Now, in the case of women, like novice nuns or bhikshunis, for them also, in order to keep their morality pure through with the force of mindfulness and by showing mindfulness and introspection, even if you are amidst men, the steady effort to control yourself will not decline. And in the 8th chapter, chapter on concentration, so Shantideva talks about being in solitude, being taking the mind away from the objects of attachment. And there also is taught in relation to monks, and these have to be understood. The similar principles have to be applied to women as well. And so a friend of mine told me, a woman told me that she doesn't like Shantideva's Bodhisattva Charya Avatara because he despises women. In that case, then she would have to also she would also have to dislike Nagarjuna as well. So this is out of ignorance, actually. 22. So even if you miss doing some prayers or your sadhanas and so forth, it may not be too bad. Of course, sometimes we say, oh, it's not too bad, and then we become complacent. So physical, even if you may not be, you may miss to do physical and verbal practices, Dharma practices, but you should not miss engaging your mind in virtuous practices, because this is dangerous. OU 23. So Master Shantideva, a great a Bodhisattva, who has reached Bodhisattva grounds, is saying here, O you who wish to guard your minds, I beseech you with folded hands. So those who have faith in Shantideva, Master Shantideva, and who also listens to his teachings, we should remind ourselves that he is keeping so much hope in us, and therefore we should be very careful and always exert yourself to guard mindfulness and alertness. People who are disturbed by sickness have no strength to do anything useful. Likewise, those whose minds are disturbed by confusion have no strength to do anything wholesome. Whatever has been learned, contemplated, and meditated upon by those whose minds lack alertness, just like water in a leaking vase, it will not be retained in their memory. Even those who have much learning, faith, and willing perseverance will become defiled by a moral fall. Due to the mistake of lacking alertness, the thieves of unalertness in following upon the decline of mindfulness will still even the merits I have firmly gathered, so that I shall then proceed to lower realms. And the next verse, this host of thieves. So mindfulness keeps what in your mind. With mindfulness, you keep in your mind what are to be adopted and what are to be discarded, and never forgetting them. Therefore, I shall never let mindfulness depart from the doorway of my mind. If it goes, I should recall the misery of the lower realms and firmly re-establish it there. Through staying in the company of spiritual masters, through the instructions of abbots, and through fear, mindfulness will easily be generated. Unfortunate people who practice with respect. So I'm ever dwelling in the presence of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who are always endowed with unobstructed vision. By thinking in this way, I shall mindfully develop a sense of shame, respect, and fear. We take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and we keep faith in them, the objects of refuge. So these refuge objects are able to see, have this wisdom of mind which sees everything unobstructed. So sometimes we try to not do something in front of others, but we do it very secretly. But we may be able to deceive people, but we will not be able to deceive the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. So by thinking in this way, I shall mindfully develop a sense of shame, respect, and fear. Also, through doing this, recollection of the Buddha will repeatedly occur. So the Tathagatas, whose wisdom mind pervades wherever everything that is there to be known. And because there's nothing which escapes the vision of the Buddha, therefore the Buddhas are always there, everywhere. And this helps to recollect the Buddha. And sometimes we do tantric practices. We invoke the wisdom beings, and we have a kind of a notion that unless the Buddhas are invited, they are not in front of us. Whereas once we invite them, they are here. That's not the case. So wherever the Buddha's mind goes, there the Buddhas are. Otherwise, we get the notion that in our rooms, until we invite the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and Buddhas, their Buddhas don't reside in the room. So that's not the case, and we become rather complacent. When mindfulness is set with the purpose of guarding the doorway of the mind. So what is right and wrong, if you're mindful of them, then when you're when attending to indulge in things which are not right to do, or when you're attending to towards things which are right to do, then you will be have this alertness or introspection as well. Even if it doesn't happen immediately, it will help to give rise to this alertness. So when, just as I am about to act, I see that mind is tainted with defilement, at such a time I should remain unmovable like a piece of wood. So when you meet with the condition for these wrong states of mind, you should be like a piece of wood, unmovable. Never should I look around distractedly for no purpose. With a resolute mind, I should always keep my eyes cast downwards. So these days we have shows on televisions and internet. Of course, these can be used for educational purposes. We should know what's going on around the world. This is necessary. We live in this world, and we have to know what's going on around the world, the real stories. But we should not watch movies or which cause distraction, and especially the monastics should not be distracted. Should not distract themselves to movies and entertainments which waste time. In order to relax the gaze for a short while, I should look around, and if someone appears in the field of vision, in my field of vision, I should look at them and say, "Welcome." To check if there is there's danger on the path, I should look again in the four directions. To rest, I should turn my head around and then look behind me. Having examined both ahead and behind, I should proceed to either come and go. Being aware of the necessity of such mindful alertness, I should behave like this in all situations. So in the case of monks, for example, when there are certain rules which with regard to how you actually, the manner of eating and also moving around and going to bed and so forth. You have to know all of these precepts and accordingly practice. With the utmost effort, I should check to see that the crazed elephant of my mind is not wandering off, but is bound to the great pillar of thinking about Dharma. Those who strive by all means of concentration should not wander off even a moment by thinking, how is my mind behaving? They should closely analyze their mind. However, if I'm unable to do this, if there is a great danger of an immediate danger of earthquake or some dangerous thing happening around you, then you have to check. When afraid or involved in celebrations, then I should relax. Likewise, it has been taught that at times of giving, one may be neutral to certain aspects of moral discipline. So there are some exceptions. So when practicing giving, it says you should leave moral discipline neutral. I should undertake whatever deed I have intended to do and think of doing nothing other than it. With my mind applied to that task, I should be set about for the time being to accomplish it. So when you actually uh, are doing something, then you have to focus on that. Otherwise, if you are just going about here and there and touching things without finishing them, then it's not good. You will not have anything to finish, complete it. By acting in this way, all will be done well. But by acting otherwise, neither action will be done. Likewise, there will be no increase in the proximate disturbing conceptions that come from a lack of alertness. If I happen to be present while a senseless conversation is taking place, or if I happen to see some kind of spectacular show, I should abandon attachment towards it. If for no reason I start digging the earth, picking at the grass, or drawing patterns on the ground, then by recalling the advice of Vedas, I should immediately step out of fear. Whenever I have the desire to move my body to say or to say something, first of all, I should examine my mind, and then with steadiness I act in the proper way. Please read on. Whenever there is attachment in my mind and whenever there is desire to be angry, I should not do anything nor say anything, but remain like a piece of wood. Whenever I have distracted thoughts, the wish to verbally belittle others, feeling of self-importance or self-satisfaction, when I have the intention to describe the faults of others, pretension and thought to deceive others, wherever I am eager to praise or have the desire to blame others, whenever I have the wish to speak harshly and cause disputes, at all such times I should remain like a piece of wood. Whenever I desire material gain, honor, fame, whenever I seek attendance. So, so when you see sentient beings who are suffering, you should not feel depressed or discouraged. Verse number 55. Being very resolute and faithful, steady, respectful, polite, with a sense of shame, apprehensive and peaceful, I should strive to make others happy. I should not be disheartened by all the whims of the childish who are in discord with one another. I should. So if you see people who are reckless, who are complacent, and who are emotionally disturbed, then you have to you should not feel discouraged or fear or anything, but then you should feel compassion towards them, thinking that they are in such a pathetic situation. Verse 57. So occasionally you should reflect on your faith and then your spiritual guides, and think of reflecting on the meaning of what you have heard, and also meditate on them. I should always hold my mind fast. So you should not feel discouraged and not lose your joy in engaging in the practices of Bodhisattvas. If mind you are not unhappy, not made unhappy when this body is dragged or tossed about by vultures greedy for flesh, then why are you so concerned about it now? So from this verse, So, of course, we use our body, speech, and mind to practice virtue. There are obstacles, such as being attached to your body. And so this shows the antidote to that. Verse number 59 on page 43. Holding body is holding this body as mine. Why mind do you regard it so? Since you and it are separate, what use can it be to you? Why, confused mind, do you not hold on onto a clean wooden form? So we actually cherish this body so much. But first, we have to protect the body in order to practice the Dharma. In the 400 verses, you may see the body as being like an enemy, but you should still protect it. And then in Haribhadra's commentary on Abhisamaya Alamkara, the clear meaning. So this body, because of this body, we have the sicknesses, suffering of sickness, birth, aging, and death. And so 400 verses say that although this body is like an enemy, it should be seen like an enemy, but you should still practice it. For a Dharma practitioner, what you should avoid is attachment to the body, but by using this boat of human body, you should journey on the path to enlightenment. And so first of all, mentally separate the layers of skin from the flesh, and then with the scalpel of discrimination, separate the flesh from the skeletal frames. And so, in order to meditate, in order to avoid or overcome attachment to things, there is meditation on seeing the whole world filled with skeleton. So, in a similar fashion, here the Master Shantideva is saying, do this analysis. So mentally separate your layers of your skin from the flesh, and then from the flesh into the lower layers and down to your skeleton. So if you think about all these materials that make up the body on our, they are rather abhorrent. So if you think about the body as a whole, it is like a machine for producing the filth. If you look at the body, it is like a machine for producing urine and feces. We eat food, and it finally comes out as feces, and then the drinks we take, finally from them comes our urine. And so the urine and feces are produced by this body. So it is the machine for production of them. So if you just leave the body aside, then it is merely a machine for producing urine and feces. But biologically, we have the seed for compassion, and then we also have this human intelligence. And therefore, by training our mind, what we can do is we can actually fulfill one's own short-term and long-term goal. And this is what we should do, responsibility. And other than this, there is nothing we can do. So while examining this as yourself, where is its essence? If even when searching with such effort you can apprehend no essence, then why, with so much attachment, are you still guarding this body now? So verse 66. Truly this body of a human being should only be employed in the practice of virtue. So this human body, and also when we look at and also the other mammals like cats, dogs, and so forth, they are brought up uh, under the care of one's mother, and so because of that, because their survival depends on the mother's milk, and therefore uh, the mothers take care of and show affection to the babies. And if the mother doesn't have affection and love towards its baby, then it will not take care of it. And therefore, the mere survival of the baby is, as long as the condition is that you have to survive under the care of one's mother, of course, you have to rely on that mother's care. I have said in Hawaii and in places which are near the oceans, after the turtles give rise to lay their eggs, and then the mothers leave the eggs, and after that, the baby turtles do not meet their mother at all, but they have to actually survive on their own, and so there's no protection from mother and no meeting with the mother at all. And if in such because of this, if the mother and the baby turtle were kept together, then maybe they cannot appreciate affection with each other. But in the case of humans, for at least few years, the baby is taken care of and nurtured by the mother. The baby cannot be self-sufficient, cannot take care of itself, and this is the similar same in the case of birds and other animals, mammals, and therefore the mother gives love and affection to the babies, and this is more or less related to the baby's reaction as well. When the baby, the other side, changes its attitude towards the mother, then that kind of affection will be lost. So what we need to do is to develop this further by using in the reason and reason and logic, thinking that love and compassion are something beneficial, and harming others is not so. And so, using this basic biological compassion, affection as the seed, we have to promote it further by using intelligence, reason, and when you extend it further and further, then it will become unbiased compassion. It can even not only extend to your near and dear ones and friends and so forth, but it can even extend to your enemy. And so, compassion is a mere aspiration, which is said in the text to be a mind which is not a valid cognition as such. So this, if you think about compassion, it can actually cover all kinds of beings, whereas hatred is it cannot extend to all beings. You have to have some absolute target. it has to be focused on a specific person or being. So you cannot have hatred aimed at all sentient beings, but you can have compassion aiming or focusing on all sentient beings. If you train your mind to to cultivate hatred towards all the sentient beings, it may not happen, because for hatred, what you need is an absolute target that you become angry at, because it is helped by some kind of a wrong determination or a certainty. So if you think about this, it makes some sense. So how to understand how the afflictive emotions work, and how the opposing factors work. So I don't know precisely, but in the Abhidharma text, there is mention of afflictive emotions which have some kind of an aspect of the object. So we have to think over these things. We can read about these in the books, and then also think about them from by using our own experiences. So love and compassion, there may be the love and compassion which give rise to attachment. So because of that, we may say that there are afflicted compassion and love. So there maybe we have to check whether they come from the afflicted emotions. So there's lots of things to be that we need to analyze. Verse 68. If servants are not given clothing and so forth, when they are unable to be employed, then why do you exhaust yourself looking after the flesh alone, when even though caring for the body, it goes elsewhere? So based on this body, we have this special intelligence to see what is right from wrong, and then we are also, as humans, a social animal, and because of that, we have to, for one's own survival, we have to depend on the rest of the community, the species. Since we are dependent on the community, and therefore we have, it's maybe easier to cultivate compassion towards these, towards other human beings. And so it may be the case with the other social animals as well. They have compassion for each other. (71) Now, while there is freedom to act, I should always present a smiling face. And so, by broadening your mind and cultivating love and compassion, on the basis of understanding the dependent origination, interdependent nature of things, with which you have a very holistic idea. Um, for example, when you understand under dependently arisen things, and you become angry at somebody, and you will find that the fact that you became angry is because of so many factors, and therefore, when you go into those factors which has given rise to the anger, you'll find that you yourself are included in them. Right from the beginning, the person whom you consider to be enemy was not your enemy. At your birth, the person is not your enemy. If there is an enemy which is who is objectively an enemy without relating to anything else, then the person should be your enemy right from your birth. But that's not the case. So when you become angry, what you have is an absolute, independent, true, solid kind of a target. So you think about this. If you have some sworn enemy, and if you hear from somebody that, oh, that person is praising you, you would not believe the person, because that person is, you have considered that person to be your sworn enemy, and that cannot be changed in your mind. So in relation to such an enemy, when you hear that that person, that enemy, is praising you, you become completely shocked. Like, it's think that that's unbelievable. That is because of seeing the enemy as some absolute target, absolute, 100% negative, and therefore, because of this, then you also have all kinds of wrong, improper conceptions about the person, and intend to intensify that anger. So on the one hand, you cultivate love and compassion, and on the other hand, you also develop this holistic outlook on things. Then that intensity of negative emotions will be reduced, and the more they are reduced, you have greater calm. And as an expression of the calm mind, you are not depressed. You'll be smiling and relaxed, and therefore I should always present a smiling face and cease to frown and look angry. I should befriend and counsel. You should, whenever you see somebody, another person, you should have this feeling that I'm meeting another person, another human being. This is what I do. I don't think that I'm a Buddhist and this person is not Buddhist, and I'm not Tibetan and he's or she is not Tibetan. But I always consider them to be same human being, and therefore I feel very close, as if I have known them before. I don't talk nicely to show flattery. If I think that I am a Tibetan, I am Buddhist, I am Dalai Lama, and so forth, then I am creating a barrier between me and others. And then, to be hypocritic, if you create this kind of barrier, then there is room for hypocrisy and all this. So I always think that that person also wants happiness. I too want happiness. We are equal. And so if you talk honestly and not have double level dealing, then you cannot have trust. And without trust, how can you have friends? So human beings need friends. For that, you need to be honest, transparent. Page 46, 72, verse 72. 73. With respect, I should gratefully expect unsought after words that are of benefit. So you encourage others. And when somebody advises you, you should not think, oh, what business he has to tell me such. You should not think like that. And that wisely advise and admonish me. At all times I should be pupil of everyone. I should say well said to all those who speak Dharma well, and if I see someone doing good, I should praise him and be well pleased. So if you hear someone behind your back despising you, you hear about that from another person, you should actually try to praise that person. I should discreetly talk about the good qualities of others. And repeatedly repeat those that others recount. So when you hear someone praising another person, you should not. You should also accord with that and not say that. Of course, this person has such qualities, but like that, you should not do like that. And if someone praises you for your good qualities, you should not feel yourself to be very important or anything like that. You should not have arrogance. All deeds of others are a source of joy. And so your body, speech, in your body, speech, and mind, if you dedicate for the welfare of others and for their joy, that would be rare, even if it could be bought with money. And so you would be not, you would not have fear, anxiety, or suspicion. So this cannot be bought. Peace of mind cannot be bought in the market. Even if you go to the market and shout at people that you want joy, peace of mind, people will laugh at you. And so the peace of mind should be cultivated from within. Therefore, I should be happy in finding this joy in the good things that are done by others. So when you are amongst people with whom you develop attachment or anger, usually, through doing this, I shall suffer no loss in this life. And so you should actually enjoy joy and happiness. It's worth doing that. And in future lives shall I find great happiness. But the fault of So when you're honest and have this altruism, be altruistic towards others, and people like you also, and you feel peace of mind. This is not something that you have bought with money, but the faults of disliking the occult qualities will make me unhappy and miserable, and in future lives I shall find great suffering. So if you are unhappy and this goes on for days, weeks, and months and years, then you lose your you are not able to you lose your health and not you will become you will lose your appetite for things food, and then have bad health. 外面把上面看那么大熊的脚吧。When talking to others, as the verse number 79 says, if you talk sincerely with the motivation to help others. I read an article written by an American scientist, which said that those who tell lies frequently have anxiety, more anxiety. So he's not talking about religion, but someone who lies all the time, of course, maybe able to tell a lie today, and then after telling lie, the person has to think, oh, what might happen to me? Will it be actually found by others? Then when you have some if you had done something wrong and you suspect that others might find it, and you have this guilt feeling, and when people actually find out your wrongdoing, you become very aggressive. And so that shows dishonesty within yourself. So if you are honest, we can tell from our own experience. Today, I don't have to tell a lie, of course. I'm in a free world in India. And until 1959, because of my interaction with the Chinese officials, I was talking to my comrades, so-called comrades, all the time, that I have to tell lies. But deep in my mind, I have to think, oh, that's not the case. Is that person not my comrade or anything? But after coming into exile, I have been able to say what I want to, and I don't have to suspect and feel anxious about whatever I say. And then and it says, when talking, I should speak from my heart. So you should talk sincerely and on is what is relevant. So if you talk a lot and it makes no sense and it has no relevance, people will feel bored. Making the meaning clear and speech pleasing. I should not talk out of desire or hatred, but in gentle tones and in moderation. Moderation is like neither talking too long nor too short. When we're holding someone in my eyes, thinking I shall fully awaken through, depending upon this being, I should look at that person with love and an open heart. So when you see other sentient beings, you should think that because of these sentient beings, I will be able to accumulate merit and overcome negative actions, and thereby I will reach enlightenment. So with that understanding, you should look at beings with this thinking I shall be fully awakened and so forth. always being motivated by great aspiration, or being motivated by remedial forces. If I work in the fields of excellence, like parents, and a benefit, and misery, like where people in need, uh, sick people, great value, virtue will come about. Endowed with wisdom and joy, I should undertake all that intends to do. I need not depend upon anyone else in any action that I undertake. The perfections of generosity are progressively more exalted, but for little morality I should not forsake great gift. Principally, I should consider what will be of most benefit for others. So, in the mind, turning the mind away from samsara, you have the practice of avoiding the attachment to or clinging to one's pleasure of this life and the clinging to the pleasures of next life and so forth. So you have to develop these progressively. You cannot have the higher experiences without building them up from the lower ones. When this is well understood, I should always strive for the welfare of others. So whatever you do, whatever you try to undertake, you have to see which is greater benefit and uh, what is right and wrong to do. The few of seeing merciful ones have allowed the Bodhisattva to do some actions that for others were forbidden. In the Pratimoksha Vinaya rules, which is meant for one's individual liberation, and for which you keep the vows of Patimoksha. And there is selfishness involved in it. Therefore, many of the practices in the Bodhisattva yana, many of the practices have to do with the mind and not not emphasizing body and speech. So many of these practices which are prohibited in the Pratimoksha are given or allowed for bodhisattvas because of not being selfish. I should divide my food amongst those who have fallen to lower realms, to those without protection, and practitioners, and eat merely. So practitioners meaning like those who are monastics, who are keeping celibacy, and eat merely what is sufficient for myself, except for the 3 robes. I may give away all. So if the monks, the bhikshus and bhikshunis separate themselves, are separated from themselves from the 3 robes, then they are actually committing infractions. Therefore, they should not be separated from them. And so you have to share it, whatever extra things you have as monastics, except for the 3 robes, you have to share with the rest of the community. This body, which is being used for the sacred dharma, should not be harmed by only slight benefit. For this body which we have, which can be used to, with the help of this intelligence, to attain nirvana and omniscient state, should not be harmed for only slight benefit. By behaving in this way, the wishes of all beings will be quickly fulfilled. So, cultivating compassion, and you have reached a very high level of compassion where you are able to see everything as being like an illusion, then at such a point you are allowed to give away your body. Until then, not. So when you have reached that level, you are permitted to give your body. And those who lack the pure intention of compassion should not give their body away. Instead, both in this and future lives, they should give it to the cause of fulfilling the great purpose. The Dharma should not be explained to those who lack respect, to those who, like sick men, wear cloth around their heads, to those holding umbrella, sticks, and weapons, to those with covered hats, nor women, and so forth. So many of our monasteries, the monks and nuns memorize rituals and perform them, and then play the musical instruments like trumpet and the horns and so forth. But they don't know what to meditate really, meditate on. Whereas in the prayers, you come across lines like, whatever appears to you are like the sports of the bliss and emptiness. And therefore, you have to first of all understand what bliss is, what the emptiness is, and then how you actually unite these two and have the experience of bliss and with emptiness, and then you see, then to be able to see everything being like an illusion and a sport of this bliss and emptiness. So otherwise, you'll be like a parrot, just repeating the lines and not having any understanding of the prayers. So having no understanding of what the Dharma is, and not being able to incorporate the teaching within yourself truly, then the Dharma actually will not work for your transformation. Verse number 90, 91, 92. These are in accordance with the Pratimoksha vows. So these show how you conduct yourself on a daily basis. The verse number 97 is a summary of what has been what has gone earlier. And 3 times by day and 3 times by night, I should recite the Sutra of the 3 heaps. So the 3 heaps here refer to confession, a heap of confession, heap of rejoicing, and heap of rejoicing, and heap of dedication. In verse 98. Whether directly or indirectly, verse 101, I should not do anything that is not for the benefit of others. Solely for the sake of sentient beings, I should dedicate everything towards awakening. So one main factor for showing conscientiousness, mindfulness and alertness is your guru. So therefore, says, never at any cost in my life should I forsake a spiritual friend who is wise in the meaning of great vehicles and who is great Bodhisattva practitioner. So this teacher, guide, or the guru should be learned as well as experienced. So even if the guru may be learned, but if he or she has no experience, then the teachings will not be not come from like a fresh experience, and will not be like an alive. So in the past, we used to refer to great beings like lamas as having these three qualities of being learned, noble, and then gentle or excellent. So, but then we, as Buddhists, we should, each and every individual should have these qualities, should develop these qualities. So you should have faith in the Dharma, especially Dharma faith, reason-based faith. And therefore, you need to have learning, be learned. And then, having become learned, you should apply the teaching within yourself and to restrain your mind so that you are not swayed by selfish motive, but dedicate yourself for the sake of others. And so, with regard to the practice, how you go about with the practice, you it's said in 400 verses. First, avoid the non-meritorious practices, and which is the practice of the 10 virtuous actions, and then the second level is to overcome the grasping at self of persons. Or you can emphasize or focus mainly on the selflessness of phenomena, selflessness of persons. Thinking that you yourself is empty of yourself, who goes around in the cycle of existence, round and round in the cycle of existence, is empty of inherent existence. And then thirdly, as it says in the 400 verses, you have to develop this insight or into penetrative insight into selflessness of phenomena or emptiness, to fulfill the complete purpose, which is to reach omniscient state. And so if you can progressively develop, tread along the path like this, then you will become a wise person, as the 400 verses refers to, says. Someone who understands this is wise. So you should refrain from selfish motive, but dedicate yourself for the benefit of all sentient beings. And if you, in this way, if you become someone who practices the Bodhisattva path, then you will become qualified with the three features of being learned, noble, and gentle. Verse number 105. So the compendium of all practices was written by Shantideva himself. Verse 106. Also, I should sometimes look at the condensed compendium of all sutras. So this compendium of all sutras written by Shantideva seems to have been translated into Tibetan. Kono Lama Tenzin Gyatsen Rinpoche told me it used to be the translation used to be there in Tibet, but it's not included in the Tengyur. So there are two interpretations here. Some it says here, and I should make an effort to study the works of the same two titles that are composed by the exalted Nagarjuna. And so, regarding the compendium of all sutras, it's referring to refers to compendium of sutra written by Nagarjuna and the Shantideva. I should do whatever is not forbidden in those works, and when I see a practice there, I should impeccably put it into practice in order to guard the minds of worldly people. Finished. Chapter 5 is finished. 6. Whatever wholesome deeds, such as venerating the Buddhas and generosity that have been amassed over 1,000 years, will all be destroyed in one moment of anger. So for an ordinary person, totally ordinary person, if we become angry at a bodhisattva, then such an anger will destroy our virtues, which we have collected over 1,000 eons. And similarly, it is mentioned in the text that if a bodhisattva becomes angry at another bodhisattva, then there is a certain amount of virtue being destroyed. And when a bodhisattva at a higher level becomes angry at a bodhisattva at a lower level, then again they lose certain virtues that have collected. So, of course, hatred, attachment, and pride or arrogance are very bad, but unlike hatred, they don't have that kind of power to destroy or to weaken the virtues collected. So, hatred or anger has the greatest power to weaken or to destroy the virtues that we have collected. So for bodhisattvas, the main practice is to hold others, to cherish other sentient beings and to serve them, and therefore to have hatred, to hate others is very bad for bodhisattvas. So, and compared to that, there is regarding attachment or desire, there are instances when bodhisattvas are allowed to engage or indulge in use attachment or desire for the purpose of others. Even when practitioners perform wrathful actions, what they have to be able to see the other being within the understanding of being like an illusion, and have as a causal motivation the compassion as the causal motivation, but at the actual time of performing the action, they actually have whether it's real hatred or anger or not, the expression, physical expression, and would be rather wrathful. And so, in bodhisattva practice, real hatred has no place in bodhisattva practice. But there are times when attachment or desire is allowed. There's no transgression like hatred and no fortitude like patience. Thus I should strive in various ways to meditate on patience. My mind will not experience peace. If it fosters painful thoughts of hatred, I shall find no joy or happiness. Unable to sleep, I shall feel unsettled. So when you are overcome with anger, your peace of mind is totally gone. It's a very a violent state, aggressive state of mind. So whether when you become so aggressive, whether it actually harms others or not, you are completely disturbed. I shall find no joy or happiness. Even when you take food, you will not enjoy it. And when when you go to bed, you are unable to sleep. Therefore, you have to turn right and left. And then the alcoholics, they have to take alcohol, one bottle, two bottles, and then they will actually pile up bottles, empty bottles underneath their bed. And when they meet some friend even, they would talk very roughly, telling them to go away. If you are calm, then even when you meet with someone you consider to be your adversary, then you will not feel disturbed. So when you are disturbed mentally, even someone who is usually attractive to you will not appear attractive to you. So because of disturbance of your peace of mind, you lose joy and happiness. And because of that, there is imbalance in the humors of your body. And then when you have, you will develop blood pressure, and that in turn harms your health. So if you are angry, you have more worries. So it may look that when you are angry, you have no worries, but then it actually develops more worries. So it will destroy your health. So you'll be unable to sleep, and your mind is unsettled. A master who has hatred is in danger of being killed, even by those who, for their wealth and happiness, depend upon the master's kindness. By it, friends and relatives are disheartened, though drawn by my generosity, they will not trust me. In brief, there is nobody who lives happily with anger. So I usually joke that when you meet with something that you consider as unfavorable, then you become angry. So when you are angry, it feels like the anger is actually your protection. So even someone who is very simple usually becomes very aggressive. And in that state of mind, the person thinks he's being protected by the anger. So it's a foolish way to protect yourself with anger. In the past, when I was in Lhasa, the 13th Dalai Lama, there were 3 cars in Novolenka, and someone from Kalimpong, an old man, was asked to come to Lhasa to repair their cars. And then there was another person, a second person, and later on Babu Tashi a third. And so the second one was bald, and he was very short-tempered. And one day, while repairing one of the cars, he was underneath the car, And while doing his work, somehow he hit his head on the car, uh, and he became angry. And as he became angry, he hit his head again and again. So the car will not feel any pain, but he suffers. So when you are angry, you are like a mad person. Your mind is crazy. And so when you have accidentally hit, when he had hit his head accidentally, he should not have developed anger. And so if you want to really overcome your enemy or adversary, you should not have anger, but with a calm mind, you have to find the right opportunity and be able to hit at the vital points. And then you will be very effective in overcoming the person. With anger and a lot of shouting, you will not be able to fulfill your goal. So rather than that, be quiet and find out the weak points and then hit there, and you'll be effectively effective. So if you try to overcome someone with your adversary with anger, it's going to be a very foolish way of doing it. So you have to find the weak point of the other person, and then you try to know how you can actually employ your weapons or to hit that person with a calm mind. So hence the enemy anger creates suffering such as these. But whoever assiduously overcomes it finds happiness now and hereafter. So without anger, if you can develop peace of mind, then you are wise. And so patience is the means to develop that, to combat one's anger. Because anger comes from causes and conditions, the main cause being unhappy state of mind. So you have to use antidote. So once the anger is already developed, it's going to be difficult for you to overcome it. But you have to see, you have to become aware when this unhappiness develops within you. Then you have to overcome in this way, called avoid anger. So if you give way to anger and let it actually arise, then you might go to the point of committing suicide as well. So having found its fuel in mental unhappiness, in the prevention of what I wish for, and in doing what I do not want, hatred increases, then destroys me. So what anger does is destroys your peace of mind, and also it's so because of your attachment towards your near and dear ones, when something unfavorable happens to them, then you become angry. And therefore, I should totally eradicate the fuel of this enemy, unhappiness. The enemy is the hatred or anger, and the fuel is its unhappiness, this mental unhappiness. So you have to take precaution to not to give rise to this fuel. For this enemy has no further function than that of causing me harm. So anger has nothing else to do but to destroy you. It will not harm your enemy directly. So someone who is angry is disturbed mentally and therefore indulges in physical and verbal negative actions. And therefore, for this enemy has no other function than that of causing me harm. Whatever befalls me, even if you are angry and you become unhappy, you will not fulfill your goal. So if you develop resentment towards those who harm you, the harm is done already, but your anger will not get rid of that harm. So you will actually suffer more. So you have already suffered from the harm, but if you become still angry, it doesn't help at all. Therefore, it does not have any benefit in this life. And because of anger, whether you express it with your body or speech, but because of the anger itself, you will create negative karma that will harm you in the future lives. So this is what Chandrakirti says in the Madhyamaka Avatara. I shall not disturb my mental. For having been made unhappy, I shall not accomplish what I wish, and my virtues will decline. Why be unhappy about something if it can be remedied? And what is the use of being unhappy about something if it cannot be remedied? So you should now analyze if something bad has happened or it's about to happen. You have to see whether there is a way to avoid it or to overcome that. If there is a way out, then you should not be angry, but with a calm mind, calm and relaxed state of mind, you have to try to see how you can overcome that misfortune or unfavorable situation. So if there is a remedy, then what need is there to be to worry or to be unhappy? If something has happened and if something has happened to you now, then there's no use of getting angry. And therefore, if there is no remedy, then what use is becoming unhappy with it? So this helps to actually avoid improper attitudes, improper way of thinking. And so what is not useful is avoided. So these are really talking about reality. So as Deng Xiaoping has said, finding truth from facts. So you have to first understand dependent origination, and in order to understand the causal dependence, and then in order to understand the reality of suchness, you have to understand, try to gain awareness about dependent origination of things. And so you have to deal with reality. understanding the reality to deal with these problems. For myself and for my friends, I want no suffering, no disrespect, no harsh words, and nothing unpleasant. But for my enemies, it is the opposite. So when you have suffering, you are unhappy, and when you have when you don't gain something, you are unhappy, and when you are talked harshly, you are unhappy. Whereas the opposite is the same in relation to your enemy. When they have suffering, when the enemies don't have suffering and so forth, you are unhappy. You are happy. So this is talking about the 8 worldly concerns. So these are causes for suffering. The causes of happiness sometimes occur, but the causes for suffering are frequent. So in this samsara, which comes through the force of delusions and karma, there is always some misfortune, and therefore suffering is cause of suffering is frequent or many. And the cause of happiness sometimes occur. And therefore, in order to accept suffering, you have to think about the good side of suffering. Without suffering, there is no renunciation. If you don't see suffering, then you will not have the wish to go out of it. And therefore, without thinking about suffering, there is no wish to go out of suffering, which is to say, to develop renunciation. And therefore, you have to think about suffering. So the Buddha's first sermon teaches, in the first sermon, the Buddha taught the Four Noble Truths, saying this is the truth of suffering and so forth. So there it shows the causal relationship between the origin and the suffering, and then the relationship between the path and its cessation. And because there is a possibility to go out of suffering, therefore, the Buddha says, no suffering. So first, the Buddha mentions the suffering, the origin of suffering, cessation, and the path. This is suffering, this is the cause of suffering, and so forth. And then, because we don't want suffering, but we want happiness, therefore, what the Buddha has said is to know suffering and so forth, and the function of that is to overcome the origin of suffering and attain cessation, and then apply the path. So if there is no purpose in engaging and avoiding what we need to overcome and adopting what we need to adopt, then there is no purpose. But having understood what suffering is and overcome it, and also knowing suffering and overcoming the origin of suffering, and then cessation, or actualizing the cessation and developing the path. Having done them and you reach the end point of your practice, then there's nothing still to be known or abandoned or actualized or applied. So the final goal is to lead to the understanding, the resultant goal of enlightenment. Having reached there, then you have no suffering to know anymore. So here also we can understand this final teaching, the set of teaching on the Four Noble Truths in terms of the conventional and ultimate nature of reality. So the Buddha's teaching that suffering should be known, that in Mahayana Uttara Tantra, it says, using the analogy of sickness and its cause and then cure from it and the means. So just as sickness is first should be known and its cause to be overcome, and then diagnose its cause, and then the cure from the disease or sickness, and then medicine is given. Likewise, the Four Noble Truths are to be understood, overcome, actualized, and applied. If some ascetics and the people of Karnapa, of course, there are many people who, like athletes, who work so hard, even going all kinds of hardships. They become very sick at times, but because of some title, a name, and money and so forth, they work so hard. If such a hardship is undertaken for a trivial goal, then for the sake of liberation, why have I no courage? So it says, if some ascetics and the people of Karnapa endure the pain of cuts and burns for no reason, then for the liberation, for the sake of liberation, why have I no courage? So although I wish liberation, but it's very difficult if you look at the athletes, of course, they are not skilled in the beginning, but they train themselves sometimes from childhood, and then they become athletes and skilled athletes. And right from the beginning, they were not skilled. And therefore, there is nothing whatever that is not made easier through acquaintance. So, through becoming acquainted with small harms, I should learn to patiently accept greater harms. For example, who has not seen this to be so, with trifling suffering such as the bites of snakes and insects, feelings of hunger and thirst, and with such minor things as rashes. I should not be impatient with heat, cold, wind, rain, sickness, bondage, beatings, for if I am, the harm they cause me will increase. Some, when they see their own blood, become especially brave and steady. Some, when they see the blood of others, faint and fall unconscious. These reactions come from the mind being either steady or timid. Therefore, I should discard harms caused to me and not be affected by suffering. Even when the wise are suffering, their minds remain very lucid and undefiled. For when war is being waged against disturbing conceptions, much harm is caused at the time of battle. So, the disturbing emotions have been with us since time beginningless, and if you talk about overcoming or eliminating them, then you may feel that how can this be possible? It's impossible. Now you have to see that disturbing conceptions are misconceptions, and they have no support from valid cognition or no valid support. Whereas the qualities that you develop on the mind have a very stable basis, whereas the qualities that you develop, the skills of the physical skills and so forth, you may develop, but then because the basis is not stable basis, therefore you decline your skills. And whereas in terms of the mind, if you study something from childhood and then you're acquainted with that they will develop and stay with you. And this is indication of the mind being a stable basis for these qualities. Whereas with physical strength and skills, you have to actually train your body, go and do exercises for some time, and then if you build up that skill, and then for after some time, when you for some time don't engage in those physical activities, you decline in the skills, and you have to build that skill again, and therefore once you are acquainted with certain qualities and knowledge and so forth within the mind, and it will stay because of the mind being a stable basis. Whereas this is not the case with the body. So this body, we change from one lifetime. We have one body and we die, and then we have another body in the next life. Whereas in the case of the mind, it has different degrees of subtlety, and in the case of the subtle state of the mind, people remembering their children, remembering their past lives, is because of the subtle mind, the imprint that is left on the subtle mind. Whereas as they age, become older and older, then the consciousness or the mind of this life takes over more and more, and then the memory of past life fades. Whereas in childhood, when they remember, it's very clear. So some of the meditators, my friends, have said that when they're able to gain some insight, or when they're able to become aware of the rigpa, the pristine awareness to a certain degree, they are able to remember or have some clairvoyance. And in Prajnaparamita studies and Abhidharma texts, there are mentions of developing clairvoyance by thinking about something that you want to remember from the past life or so, on the basis of having concentration. Whereas in Tantra, there is also clairvoyance based on the consciousness, the nose consciousness, and the tongue consciousness, and so forth. Not only the consciousness or clairvoyance with your ears. And so the qualities that are developed on the basis of the mind are stable because of the stable basis of the mind, and because of their having support from valid reason and logic and valid perception, then they can be developed further and further infinitely. Whereas the afflictive emotions do not have the support of valid reason and perception, and therefore, the more you develop or acquaint with them, with the valid cognition, the, wisdom, and so forth, they diminish further and further. So when combating against the disturbing emotions, much harm is caused at the time of battle. So we feel that when we talk about actually combating against the disturbing emotions and overcoming them completely, we feel that it's not possible. How can this be possible? But of course, for people who base themselves on blind faith alone, they may pray that may these negative emotions go away through the blessings of my lamas and rituals and so forth. But but you have to see that there is a reason to combat the disturbing emotions. So it's not easy, of course, because we are so used to these negative emotions since time beginningless. Kunalama Rinpoche told me this. Someone who goes to war will not be thinking that they are going for some fun, but because they are going to combat with enemies, therefore they will be very attentive and alert when they go to war. And similarly, in our case, we have to acknowledge the difficulty of overcoming the disturbing conceptions. So Ben Gongyen, the Geshe Ben Gongyen of the Gadam tradition, has said that with regard to these disturbing emotions, when the disturbing emotions are alert, I also become more alert, and when they relax, I relax, and so forth. So Geshe Ben Gongyen sees the negative consequences of these negative emotions. So Geshe Ben Gongyen used to be a bandit on the high passes, and then he became a very good practitioner later. And so one time he was invited to a house, a family house, and while he was in the family house, because of his acquaintance because he was accustomed to stealing and robbing people, therefore his hand, he tends to stretch his hand towards something to steal something from there. And then while his hand was stretching towards that object, he held that hand with the other hand and shouted, "There's a thief here, there's a thief here." And then the family came back and they asked, "Where?" "It is here," he said, pointing to himself. And then one day, another day, Geshe Ben Gongyen was living in his cave or his hermitage, and he got the message that his patrons were visiting him on that day. And then he cleaned up his room and arranged an altar and offerings on the altar. And after having arranged the offerings on the altar, then he sat down and he thought, he reflected. And then he found that because that he was actually indulging in the 8 worldly concerns, he arranged the altar because of the knowing that his patron was coming, and just as he found that out, then he actually threw some dust on the altar, and then he was sitting on his throne or covering his head. And then the patron came, and they found the altar so dirty. And what happened here? They asked him, and he said, "I have been under the sway of the 8 worldly concerns earlier, and therefore I actually threw this in the face of the 8 worldly concerns." And so he was really always showing vigilant about his own state of mind. So the victorious warriors are those who, having disregard to all suffering, vanquish the foe of hatred and so forth. So this is true hero. who fight against these disturbing emotions with which we are acquainted for so long. So if you think about the 7 billion people in this world, so we find that everybody actually lives uh, in an unhappy state of mind and suffering. Why this so is because we have given ourselves in to self-cherishing attitude and grasping at true existence. And because of these two, this is our condition now also. And because now the teaching of the Buddha and masters like Nagarjuna and so forth have made this very clear to us, what we have to try to develop is the cherishing others and develop this wisdom, understanding selflessness to combat against these negative emotions. So if you think about these, then sometimes you feel happy, sometimes also sad. When common variously is only corpses, then other qualities of suffering are further. Suffering has good qualities. In the 737 practices of Bodhisattvas, it says that when you meet with lots of unfavorable circumstances, you may feel disheartened, but you have to cultivate bodhicitta and in those times to do away with this. And Kono Lama Rinpoche also has said that this gives bodhicitta gives you courage, confidence, and delight, and joy. When you feel disheartened, you should think of bodhicitta to uplift your mind. Whereas when you become very, very proud, very happy, that may give rise to pride. And in order to overcome it, in order to combat that, you have to meditate on compassion, bodhicitta. So when you think about the sentient beings being under the sway of suffering, and especially the deepest suffering of conditioned existence, then arrogance will be dispelled. Compassion arises in you for those in cyclic existence, and negativity is shunned, and joy is found in virtue. As I do not become angry with the great source of suffering, just as jaundice, such as jaundice, then why be angry with inanimate creatures? So the sufferings come from causes and conditions, but do not exist independently. Although they are not wished for, these sicknesses arise through causes and conditions, and likewise, although they are not wished for, these disturbing conceptions possibly arise. Without thinking I shall be angry, people become angry with no resistance, and without thinking I shall produce myself, likewise anger itself is produced. All mistakes that occur and all the various kinds of wrongdoing arise through the force of condition. They do not govern themselves. These conditions that assemble together have no intention to produce anything, and neither does their product have the intention to be produced. So in the Samkhya school, everything comes from, all the evolutes come from the primal substance or the universal factor. And then, because of these evolutes, the beings become attached to them, and then develop also not knowing the reality of the evolutes. They become attached to or angry at and so forth. They develop these negative emotions. But once the beings become aware of the evolutes being just manifestations of these by the primal factor, then there is the dissolution process happening. So in our text, there is mention of the Jain philosophical the logic that is used by the Jains, ascribed to the Jains, saying that they say that the plants have life because and the reason that we give is because they sleep at night, shrinking their leaves and so forth. So, but then one time we had some meeting here with non-Buddhists and Jains also, and they have so many explanations, not so simple. Gendu Chambel has said that many of the Gendu Chambel has said that our texts, Buddhist texts, have not actually given the very more profound kind of logic and explanations of non-Buddhist traditions, but things which are more explicit are mentioned in our texts. So when we study Madhyamaka, there is a point of argument which is between Chandrakirti and Bhavaviveka, and we say that Bhavaviveka has interpreted by himself what Buddha Palita has said, and so forth. Therefore, we argue against Bhavaviveka. But Saikung Roger Chang has once said that if we really meet Bhavaviveka, we would have to actually accept his forced to accept his position as well. That which is said is primal substantia, and that which is imputed as a self do not arise after having purposely thought, I shall arise. The next verse is refutation of Vaisheshika position. If they are unproduced and non-existent, then whatever wish they have to produce, since the self would permanently apprehend its object, it follows that it would never cease to do so. So these lines give positions of Samkhya and Nyayikas briefly. And then as a summary, verse number 31 is the summary of these verses. Verse number 27 to 30. Because things are dependent and they do not have any independent existence, therefore they are like illusion. If everything is unreal, like an apparition, then what need is there to practice patience to overcome anger? It says, then who is here to restrain what? Surely, in this case, restraint would be inappropriate. It would not be inappropriate because conventionally I must maintain that in dependence upon restraining anger, the stream of suffering is severed. So although things are like illusion, but they impact us. They have, therefore, from illusion-like karma, illusion-like suffering happens. So by saying things are like illusion, we are not saying that things do not exist at all. We say that they do not have independent existence as said in fundamental treatise of the middle way. And whatever is dependently arisen is said to be empty. And then Master Nagarjuna goes on to say that this is that itself is dependently designated, and that is the middle way. And then he goes on to say that whatever is dependent, there is nothing which is not dependent. Therefore, there is nothing which is not empty. And therefore, these two verses are the essence of the fundamental treatise of the middle way. And therefore, what is shown is that things are dependently arisen and have no independent existence. And if things were to have any independent existence, that they would not be affected by causes and conditions. And 33. So when one sees an enemy or even friend committing an improper action, by thinking such things arise from conditions, I shall remain in a happy frame of mind. If things were brought into being by choice, then, since no one wishes to suffer, suffering would not occur there to any embodied creature. So, because of our ignorance, we view something suffering, which is in the nature of suffering, as being pleasurable, and some impermanent as permanent, and something which has no self as having self, and things which are filthy as clean. And therefore, because of these four distorted views, we create karma and so forth, and we suffer. Through not being careful, people even harm themselves with thorns and other things. And for the sake of obtaining women and the like, they become obsessed and deprive themselves of food. And there are some who injure themselves through the unmeritorious deeds of hanging themselves, leaping from cliffs, eating poison and unhealthy food. If, when under the influence of disturbing emotions, people will even kill their treasured selves, how can they be expected not to cause harm to the bodies of other living beings? Even if I cannot develop compassion for all such people who, through the arisal of deceptive conceptions, set out to try and kill me and so forth, the last thing I should do is to become angry with them. Even if it were the nature of the childish to cause harm to other beings, it would still be incorrect to be angry with them, for this would be like begrudging fire for having the nature to burn, and even if the fruits were temporary. In they who are by nature reliable, it would still be incorrect to be angry, for this would be like begrudging space for allowing smoke to arise in it. If I've become angry with although I am actually harmed by the sick, then since the perpetrator too is secondary, being in turn incited by hatred, I should be angry with hatred instead, previously. So because of one's own karma, you meet with the person who harms you. And when the perpetrator actually harms you, the person actually creates more karma to suffer for himself or herself. And therefore, there's no reason to be angry. On the contrary, if you cultivate patience in relation to these people who harm you, so it says previously, I must have caused similar harm to other sentient beings. Therefore, it is right for this harm to be not returned to me, who the caused injury to others. So if you look at the enemy, the adversary who actually harms you, so because of your karma, you meet with an enemy, and therefore you actually bring them more suffering. And therefore, because there is an enemy, you have the opportunity to practice patience, and therefore should uh, you should feel grateful for the enemies or the adversary, looking at them as your teacher to show you the practice of patience. Whereas when others despise you, verse number 52, 53. So, since my mind is not physical, in no way can anyone destroy it, but through its being greatly attached to my body, it is caused harm by physical suffering. Since disrespect, harsh speech, and unpleasant words do not cause any harm to my body, why mind do you become so angry? 56, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60. This is a question raised, a qualm that is raised. Verse number 60. So for this 64 downwards is referring to showing patience towards those who harm your friends, relatives, and so forth. Verse number 70, 71. Likewise, when the fire of hatred spreads to whatever my mind is attached to, so the more you are attached to something, the greater your hatred will be in relation to that object when someone tries to harm that. I should immediately get rid of it for fear of my merit being burned. Verse number 72. 73, 74. Yet now, since great meaning will accrue. So you have to you have to view the self-cherishing attitude and grasping at a self as being disadvantageous. Since the meaning of the great meaning will accrue from harm, which is not even a fraction of that, I should indeed be solely joyful towards such suffering that dispels the harms of all. So combating the disturbing emotions with anger will never end. But if you combat these disturbing emotions, of course, there is an end to it. So even if you overcome external enemies, you may vanquish one, but the next one will come, and then again, if you vanquish that one, the third one will come, and so forth. So there's no end to enemies, external enemies. Should someone else find joyous happiness in praising my enemy as an excellent person, why, mind, do you not praise him too, and likewise make yourself happy? Verse 77. So when an enemy is praised by someone, that person who praises your enemy feels happy, and therefore you should think that that is okay. Eighty. $82. 83. 85. 86. 86. Yeah. The prayer of the words of truth. Homage to the Triple Gem, magnificent masters, the ocean of limitless good qualities, those gone to bliss after 3 times, you children and disciples, looking upon the destitute migrators like your own child, please pay attention to my true words of sorrow. Expand the doctrine of the completely perfect, capable one, a sage, which removes the suffering of cycling existence and solitary peace, for abundant, extensive welfare and happiness in Jambudviva, increase the 10 kinds of Dharma activities. of all those learned and accomplished holders of the doctrine by pacifying all the unbearable dangers of sickness, weapons, famine, caused those migrants totally compelled by intolerable strong karma, stricken by the torture of suffering without respite to recover their breath in an ocean of happiness and joy, particularly for all migratory beings in the religious snowlands, oppressed with evil actions by the barren hordes from the black side, devoid of love. May your power of compassion arise and quickly stop the flow of blood and tears. May all the unruly groups of people maddened by the dim and afflictive emotions, who by their rough behavior ruin themselves and others, fully obtain the eye which sees that object of compassion and obtain magnificent love, kindness, and affection. Chö Gyur Jig.